It's Literacy Hour with Brionna, giving you honest conversations about the state of literacy. I'm with Amani Weather and Dr. Hernandez on the topic of child literacy and how social media can be an effect in that. I'm here to give like two perspectives as someone who is going into the field, but also someone who has the knowledge and experience within the field. As an educator, what were some patterns that you saw amongst children in terms of reading?
You can see children grasping the letters, the sounds of the letters, and grasping like the alphabet and learning sight words and being able to identify words because they're being exposed to it so many times. And if teachers read to the children more, the children actually memorize the book, but they could actually they're able to see the words outside of that book. You know, they've been able to recognize it. So I think that's a great way to approach children in reading. It's that rereading, exposing them to books, and at the same time, like a lot of repetitions of words, a lot of repetitions, introducing new words and vocabulary. I think that I've seen that happen in many facilities, and I've seen readers leave here actually the Child Development Center reading children at the age of 4, almost 5, because they've been exposed to that high quality environment, and the teacher's been very mindful and prepared in order for in sense of preparing them to be able to accomplish some reading and learning words and understanding what reading's all about. Like it's like like one word becomes a sentence becomes there's meaning. So just exposing them to what books look like, what is a book, what is a title, what is an author, what are words, what words make, what are letters make sound, letters make words make sentences, and sentences make paragraphs, and then it becomes a book. So all that, I've seen that happen, but unfortunately children in some schools that I've been to at a higher, even higher level, they cannot read. They cannot read, and that is a problem that we have. So we have to start looking at where are we starting and what's going on at the start of this child's life, so they could be able, when they reach at that level, be able to read and not just read, but understand what they're reading and have that comprehension too.
I agree. I have two different experiences. I used to tutor like younger readers. I had one specific tutor who child that I tutored, and she was going into the 3rd grade, and so I spent the entire summer getting her reading level up because she was only reading at like a kindergarten level. And that strategy helped a lot, just introducing her to the words. I wasn't just just saying, okay, we'll go read this book. I'm sitting there reading the book with her, and then we reread the book so that the words that she messed up on, I can show her where she messed up and teach her how to sound it out phonetically. Just those different strategies to kind of help them memorize, and they can get the information in different ways because, as we know, kids learn in different ways. Everybody learns in a different way. And so you have to be able to shift and be able to accommodate them in that way. And I've also seen reading in higher level situations. 8th grade, I did an observation. I had observation hours last semester, and I was in a middle school in the area, and I was in the 8th grade English class, and it was extremely surprising to me that these kids are about to go into high school and they don't even know how to punctuate a sentence properly. And I think at that point, it is extremely important to look back and see where it is, meet them where they are, figure out where it is that they are, and then try to get them up using the correct strategies. Obviously, it's harder to teach middle schoolers, almost high schoolers, how to kind of focus and read, especially because if there's already some insecurities behind it, it's going to be even harder. But I think that's a lot of where the school comes in and where teachers come in and reading coaches come in, to be able to recognize the reading patterns that they already have and try to work with them where they are. It's not going to be an easy task at all, but it's extremely important to work with them where they are, because then they go into high school and they might not necessarily have, there's not enough resources in the high school to be able to accommodate every child that comes in and can't read. Right. So it's extremely important that as educators we're paying attention to those patterns and kind of preventing them before they get too far gone.
For me personally, I very much remember, I want to say, during the 2nd or 3rd grade, like specials, going down to the library, picking out a book, reading the book, and if you wanted to take it home, you could take it home and check it out. And I remember, that being very much part of how I developed my literacy as well as my love of reading. So I wanted to say, for you, what was kind of your experience with that as well? That kind of.
Mine was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I have my mom is a very avid reader, so is my grandmother, and so in turn, like I was the only girl, so I was like, oh, well, I'm just do what they're doing, and so I would pick up magazines. I have a very Matilda-ish story. Yeah. I would just pick up anything and read it, and so we also had specials. I also had my first grade teacher. She was in English. She like specialized in English in early childhood, and we had like reading sheets. So every week we had to read for a specific amount of time, and it had to be signed off by our parents. And
I remember that too.
yeah, so we went to the library twice a week, and our librarian, we were able to check out, I think, maybe 3 books at a time. Not only that, we didn't just go to the library and walk around and pick books, but our librarian spent like half of our special time reading to us. Like she would read the book to us, and then if we liked the books, she would read chapter books. Sometimes she would read picture books, depending on kind of what mood she was in. And after she would finish the book, she would put it up on the shelf, and anybody who wanted to check the book out, they could. And so I think my experience is a little different because I went to a Montessori school. So education was kind of seen in a different way. We were taught to learn at our own pace, but our teachers still pushed us to learn at a faster pace, because we were kind of learning a little ahead of what we were supposed to be. So in first grade, I was kind of learning at more of a second grade level. Right. So in first grade, I was reading at a second grade level, and I think for me, it built confidence a lot because I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm only 6, but I'm reading like this very intermediate chapter book, and my parents helped foster that as well. It was not easy learning to read in my mother's house because she would not tell me what the word was. She would make me sound it out until I got it, and then she would tell me it was correct. And then she would have me read over it over and over again until I could say it without stuttering. If I had questions, because I'm a very curious person, if I had questions about something, she'd be like, I don't know, look up the answer. And then I would have to write a paragraph about it. And then as I got older, she would have me Google it, and then I would have to write almost full papers about it. And in that way, they kept me up to date on my writing and reading skills. So yeah, I had a very similar experience. I think that I wish a lot more people had that experience because now it's a little harder because nobody likes to read anymore, which is very sad. But yeah.
In your eyes, what does literacy mean to you?
Not just reading a book or writing a sentence or writing a paper, it's also speaking to others and kind of communicating and sharing with them what you've learned. And it's kind of talking about your experiences, it's talking about your surroundings, your environment, your interactions, the world itself. There's so much literacy could bring to you. And I think understanding literacy and understanding also how to read is understanding your subjects. It's understanding math. It's understanding science. Understanding if you can't read, you can't understand. You won't be able to comprehend, understand everything else. I mean, in a sense, yeah, you can probably comprehend in one sense if you can, but if you cannot read to understand and to learn more, it's going to be something that will hold you back because you can listen and maybe understand and comprehend, right? And you can be able to answer questions, but reading it and finding it out for yourself and making your own research will individualize your learning, of course, and it will enhance that too. But like I said, it could be so much like that communication, that talking to others, relaying what you learn, talking about the environment, talking about the world, talking about what you know as a person. All that's for me, it could be considered literacy also.
I agree. I think communication is extremely important, and I think without having if like proficient reading and writing skills, you can't really have proficient communication. That's your first line of communication when you're younger, and you can't really form full sentences that maybe adults or older people can understand. They might ask you to write down some sight words or draw a picture. You can't do that if you don't have proficient literacy. And I think that it's people skills. I think it's really important to be able to develop your people skills. I don't know, for me, I think that I'm a lot more confident in having conversations like this in front of people, with people, because I have easily comprehended and understood a lot of things around me. And I do agree that it's like, it's not just in the classroom, it's everywhere. I think that there's a reason that you have to read and write in every subject in school. You can't do science or math. In math, they have word problems. You have to be able to write down formulas in science. You have to be able to read different texts in history to be able to understand things from a historical context. And that's purposeful because it's extremely important. It's extremely important to be able to understand the world, and you can't do that unless you're able to read and write. Yeah, I think it's about communication skills. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's not just about doing well in school. I think it's about being able to be efficient outside of school. I think that's what school is. It's preparing you for what happens to you afterwards when you leave school, and I think that's one of the most important parts.